we went by boat and we landed at Pires Harbour and went up through Athens. We stopped a couple of days in Athens and got on the train and we went all the way by train up to a few miles short of Salonika on that east coast.
Yes.
So Katerini was the place, and a little village of Riakia. We billeted in Riakia eventually, and that was about 20 miles from Salonika. And I never got into Salonika at that time.
What was the political position of Greece then?
Well, it was a funny thing. Italy and Greece had been fighting for years.
Yeah.
But but Greece and Germany were bosom pals. When we landed at Pires to go up to the Salonika border there, when we landed at Pires, we left in convoy and we drove through Athens to get to the camp where we stopped in Athens for a couple of days. We drove through Athens. On the way, we drove past the German embassy. And upstairs, on the second stairs, upstairs, the German officers were outside on the balcony, on seats, about 4 to a table, and they were counting and looking and examining every vehicle that passed. And that was the German army. We didn't go to Greece to fight the Germans. We went to Greece to help the Greeks fight the Italians.
Right.
We never went to fight the Germans. The Germans and the Greeks were friends. We'd only been up at Katerini on the east coast in Salonika for about a fortnight. At midnight one night, they said, "We're leaving in half an hour." Just that, we'd been digging trenches all day out in the Greeks' fields. We thought the Germans were coming through from Salonika, you see, later on. But in the meantime, they'd struck through the middle of Greece. So we left at midnight, we marched down to Katerini itself, and there we got the trucks, and we went by truck back down the coast and up over Mount Olympus, right up over Mount Olympus, through the Maori positions. They'd taken up positions in Mount Olympus, right up through Mount Olympus, and right up to Larissa, and right up towards the Yugoslav border, right in the centre of Greece, up there. And when we landed up there, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was that much snow on the ground. By gosh, it was cold. We'd just come from Egypt about a month before, and it was cold. Well, we were up there about a fortnight, and the Germans broke through. And the first indication we had that the Germans had broken through is the Yugoslavs come back through Greece. The Yugoslavs, Serbians, had been driven out of Yugoslavia, and a lot of them came back through Greece, trying to dodge the Germans. They came back through Greece.
Is this refugees or soldiers?
Soldiers. Oh,
Soldiers.
they had their artillery with them.
Right.
Oh, they were still fighting. But they'd been driven out of Yugoslavia. Oh, the Germans also were so quick. They were so fast. But these fellows they'd run faster than the Germans. Yeah. And we were only there in that particular area for about a fortnight. Then for 3 days we held the Germans up in that pass, Server Pass, and they drove us out. And then we went helter-skelter right down through Greece, halfway down to a place called Lamia, to another pass. And we held them there for about 2 days. They drove us out of there. And then we went to about 20 miles outside Athens to another pass. And we were there about 24 hours. They drove us out of that too. And that's where we went right through Athens. And that's where we were caught. The Germans weren't very far behind us. And we got out onto an open stretch of road heading towards the end of that peninsula where we were going to evacuate. And on that open stretch of road, our convoy was attacked by 9 Messerschmitts. they attack in threes, in a circle, threes. So 3 circles attacked the convoy. In the past, it was visible to me that be all 5 or 6 of our trucks were all set afire, blazing, and our one wasn't hit. It was attacked, but it wasn't hit. You left the trucks and you went out about 50 to 100 yards on either side and lay down.
Yeah.
I only went about the width of the road line, about 20 yards, and lay down in the corn.
Mm-hmm.
The corn was about head high, it was about 2 feet. Coverage of it, nothing but it was ripe corn, yeah. And I lay down there on my back and watched them, yeah. And
on your back and watched them?
I always lay on my back, I never lay on my stomach. Always on my back, always watched them, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of fellas lay on their stomach and keep the head of the I never. I always lay on my back and watched them, yeah.
What, were these all Kiwi soldiers?
All, yes.
Yes. In
our convoy, all Kiwi. It was, we were in the first echelon.
Right.
And they were 18th, 19th and 20th, but I was in the 20th battalion. Our convoys had been attacked regularly, but I was particularly fortunate. I'd only been attacked once previously, but it was just a hit and miss attack, wasn't pursued to the finish. Whereas this particular day, the 9 Messerschmitts intended to obliterate us, and they did.
You were the target?
We were the target, and they meant to settle us, yes, and they did. Our lorry wasn't hit, and some maybe round the corner out of sight weren't hit, but all the ones I could see were all ablaze, all hit.
Many killed?
Big pardon?
Many people killed? Many
There were
soldiers
about
killed?
14, I think, killed altogether that day.
Were you fearful for your life?
It was exciting.
Yeah.
I lay on my back and I watched them coming in, and I loaded my rifle and cocked it, and as they come in, I fired at them.
Yeah.
With the 22. I fired at them.
Right.
They were only just the height of a poplar tree above the trucks.
Right.
But they zoomed in and away, and as they come in, I shot at them.
Right.
I shot one, and then I turned around and followed them with the second one. And then I to the end, I had my rifle barrel so hot that the grease ran out of it, and I'm so busy and so interested that I didn't pull the bolt back far enough, and when I pushed it forward, it jammed. Now the ones that didn't get through Athens, the Germans got into Athens too.
Yeah.
But they only got in on a side road, and we were through the main part of Athens, south. But all our convoy didn't get through, and the ones that didn't get through were turned and went away around and over the Current Canal, and they're the ones that never got off.
Right. So they were caught.
They didn't get through quick enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were caught in Greece.
They were caught in Greece.
Yeah.
They were caught in Greece. We got off.
Yeah.
But another quarter of an hour, half an hour, probably half an hour, another half an hour would all be caught. For the rafting, yeah.
And by boat to Crete.
The Ajax, the cruiser.
Right.
We went out on a lighter.
Yeah.
You know, lighter.
Mhm.
And at midnight, and while we were going out, of course, we were told to take rifles, bullets out of your rifle, because we were stuffed, standing, jammed in.
Yeah.
One German obviously hadn't, because somewhere on the trip on our lighter out to the Ajax, but he shot right up in the air.
Right.
He'd had something in his rifle. In all the fighting in Crete, we never saw one British plane, not one.
Right.
In the whole time I was in Crete, never saw a British plane.
Yeah.
And the Germans just fly around anywhere they like.
Right. What was the chat amongst the men? What was the morale like?
Oh, rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
Yeah, rock bottom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rock bottom.
Did it feel like you'd been deserted or left behind or?
I think so. I remember the Packers driving it. We knew when they were coming at 9 o'clock in the morning. Oh, we knew.
Yeah.
We were waiting for them.
Yeah.
Oh, that part of the intelligence was good.
Right.
So they must have had intelligence from Great.
Yes.
We knew when they were coming.
Yeah.
When the parachutes came in, they came into Maloney, but they also came into Heraclian. But the Australians wiped them out of Heraclian. The Australians held Heraclian. We didn't hold Maloney. When they do come, they all land in just one little area like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And the problem in Crete was communication. After the parachutists landed, there was no communication. The communication was poor. We stopped for 3 days and watched the planes coming in. I could see them coming in, just coming in a steady stream to the aerodrome. For 3 days we watched them coming in. We never shifted. No orders, no communication at all. On the morning of the day we were taken prisoner, the Messerschmitts never bothered with us at all. But it was a steady stream of them, but they come down over the pass and right down alongside the Comitati village and straight out to sea. One after the other, straight out to sea. They were chasing the boats. They weren't interested in us at all. They were chasing the boats. And that went on all day.
Yeah.
But in the morning, about 9 or 10 o'clock, an English officer came up from lower down in the village. We were on the top end of the village. From further down in the village by a church, I was down there later, I knew this, an English officer came up to our compound, with the last compound before the edge of the village. He came up and he was crying. He was crying. And he said, we had to throw away our rifles. We surrendered. And these 50 men, stragglers, and I was one of them, but I didn't participate in this. But a lot of jokers were so annoyed, they said, "Flavin, traitor, traitor,
Right.
hang him, shoot him."
Yeah.
And by gosh, it was very nearly, it was, very nearly a nasty situation.
Right. Yeah.
They very nearly shot him.
Yes.
Yeah. But he was all armed, we all had our
Yes,
rifles, we
yes.
got a rifle. Very nearly shot him. But the officer, Butterfield, he was in charge, he calmed them down.
What was his rank?
He was captain.
Captain.
He was captain. And the other fellow, McElroy, was a captain too. Two of them,
Yeah.
same unit, but Butterfield must have been junior.
Yeah.
He told them, that's it. We'll listen to what he has to say.
Yes.
And he convinced us that yes, the island had surrendered.
Right. So who would have made that decision? Was this Kippenberger?
Hey?
Who was the overall commander in chief on the island?
Freiburg.
Oh, okay.
And he got away the day before.
Right.
And Kippenberger got away that night.
Right.
And they got away.
Yeah.
So they were no longer on the island. From there on, Butterfield said, every man's on his own, make your own way up the hill. That's the orders. Make your own way up the hill. The German guards will be up on both sides of the hill. Make your own way up the hill. And that's it. That's what we did. Every man set off on his own, 2s and 3s, singles, just walking up at your own pace. As we got further up, the guards were on either side. We'd asked the guards, how much further? 2 kilometres. That was at 9 o'clock in the morning. All day we walked, in the blazing sun with no food or water or anything. all they would. Every time you'd ask a guard, how much for? Only 2 more kilometres. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, only 2 more. God. Oh, God. At dark, we pulled into a great big field, and I can remember it'd been field piece, little wee round field pieces, hard as stones. We pulled into a great big field. Now, in that field, it was ringed with German machine guns. 4,000 to 5,000.
Wow. Yeah.
There were a lot.
Yes.
So we had to move on.
Yes.
But at one of the first villages, I managed to get an earthenware jar. I suppose it would hold over a gallon, it was be over a gallon. It was a bulbous thing with a narrow neck and a flange. I was able to fill it up at the pump, drink as much as I could and fill it up, and I carried it, just like we hand ran it, I carried it all the way to the next village. But before I got to the next village, I'd emptied the gallon. I'd emptied the thing. I was so frightful thirsty. Yeah. I don't know how James got on. He didn't get a jar, but I got a jar. Come to the next village, there'd be another pump. Drink as much as you could and fill the jar and walk on and on. He looked friendly. Yep. And of course I never went on. Then I just sort of held back and did what you do. But I determined I wasn't going to leave there until I saw when he come back. By Joseph, it wasn't long. He came back and he filled the damn thing full. But more than that, two rolls that long of white bread, just freshly baked. God, was I hungry.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
Oh, I eat them straight away.
Yes.
Yeah. And he filled it with red wine, grassy. Not water.
Right.
Grassy.
Yes.
He obviously had no water.
Yeah.
But he obviously had access to the wine cellar.
Food in the camps. What were you eating?
Porridge, rice and sultanas, and the wedge of bread. And we had mint tea, which is tea brewed with leaves of some vegetable thing or tree leaf or something.
Yeah.
But it's not genuine tea. It has a sickening taste after a while. But mint tea, no sugar or milk, of course, just mint tea. And we had ersatz coffee, which is roasted rye.
Yes.
Roasted rye. So the thing is, there was nothing like enough. You were starving to death.
Yeah.
You got so thin, you were starving to death.
Never got any meat?
We never got meat as such. But I think at times, I'm not sure about this, I think at times we had some sort of a stew with bully beef. They have those little bully beef tins. Very, very little.
Okay.
Very little. I can't remember it.
You were there for 4 months, you said?
3.5 months.
3.5 months on Crete.
Yeah. I got jaundice on Crete.
You got jaundice?
Jaundice, yeah.
Oh, that was...
And I was desperately ill in Crete.
Yeah.
And I went from the ordinary part of the hospital, ordinary part of the camp, into the hospital part. I was in the hospital part for about a month, yeah, perhaps 6 weeks. And at the time I was there, I got 1 boiled egg. 6 weeks, 1 boiled egg. It was only marginally better than that and the other.
Okay.
But at least when you were in the hospital part, you were closer to the general hospital, the stone, because you were in just below the stone building. You were closer to that, and there was no thought of you working.
Okay.
You weren't asked to go out and work parties or anything.
Right.
So you didn't have that hanging over you.
Okay.
So you wouldn't work. But as far as food concerned, no. But no, but I was there for at the dust. I got 1 boiled egg. I could have eaten 1 boiled egg every day. But for 3 days, I got a bread ration. It was a pitifully small ration. 3 days I got a bread ration. I gave it away. And starving. Bread's the thing that you crave.
Yeah.
But for 3 days I was so sick.
You couldn't eat it.
I gave it away.
you were there for that length of time. What did your family know back home?
Nothing for 6 months.
Nothing.
No, nothing. We were given a postcard,
Mm-hmm.
and it was posted,
Yes.
but it didn't arrive for 6 months.
Right.
But it did arrive.
Yeah.
I've got it. I
Mhm.
got it. It did arrive, but it was 6 months after it delivered.
What were they told then? And what by the New Zealand Army? What were they? Were you missing in action or were
Missing
you
in action.
missing in action?
Yeah.
So they didn't know whether you were alive or dead.
No, but some of the jokers in my platoon
Mm.
knew that I reached the embarkation point.
Mm-hmm.
So they assumed that I would be taken prisoner.
Oh, okay.
So but Mum and Dad were told that I'd reached the embarkation point, it almost certainly be taken prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, a lot were killed before they ever reached the point. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But once we reached the embarkation point,
Mm.
we were on surrender. There
Right.
was no more fighting.
Yes.
The fighting stopped when we got there and the boats didn't come in.
Mm.
They surrendered. So that was it.
Mm. Okay.
But it was 6 months before they knew. Yeah.
Mm.
Now, so later on, when we were registered and got to Germany,
Mm.
we wrote every week,
Mm-hmm.
one letter every week,
Okay.
and they did arrive.
Yeah.
Well, about 3 months later, but they
Yes.
all arrived.
Yes.
And the same letters from here arrived, but about 3 months later.
You weren't looking to get away at that time.
No.
Why not?
Well, we'd just been taken prisoner and we were starving.
Yeah.
And if we couldn't get away when we had rifles,
Mm.
how were we going to get away with no rifles and starving? I never thought for 1 minute that they'd be able to send submarines over and take us off.
Mm.
As far as I thought, if you got out in the hills, that's where you'd stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'd either starve or the Greeks would get shot,
Mm.
harbouring you, because what was going to happen? This was midsummer.
Yes.
What was going to happen in the winter?
Mm.
When the snow on the ground, because there was snow on the ground there in the hill,
Mm.
what was going to happen? And so I had no intention of escaping at that stage, no.
Okay. And
So-
did other people? Anybody
Uh,
else?
Here and there,
Yes.
some went.
Yes.
And one fella out of my tent, Jimmy McDevitt, I can remember the night he went. He was about 7 or 8 months up in the hills
Yes.
with a Greek,
Mm.
and he got back to Egypt on a submarine.
Wow.
He did, and I visited him in Auckland after the war.
Mhm.
But I never thought that had any chance at all of getting off.
Right.
None.
Yeah.
So I never took the chance. But he
Yeah.
did, and he got away.
You got away with it.
But there were jokers who went out and stopped in villages,
Mm.
and the Germans caught them in the village, and that's when they burnt the villages.
Right.
Burnt them
Right.
and shot a lot of Greeks.
Mm.
And it wasn't quite the thing to save your own skin and have a Greek village wiped out.
Yes.
Eh?
Yes.
A lot of Greeks were made martyrs. They hid British soldiers,
Yeah.
but the Germans got fifth columns amongst the Greeks themselves,
Yes. Yes.
alerted the Germans that there's a fellow there, and the Germans come in and they just don't shoot the one that's harder, they shoot half a dozen, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And you can see the smoke on the hill
Mm.
from the camp, the White Mountains. You can see where they'd set fire to the villages.
Village, right.
Yeah. The jokers in long pants
Yes.
who did the fighting, they were with us until about a week after Hitler attacked Russia.
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks after we were taken prisoner, Hitler attacked Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And for about a week after Hitler attacked Russia, these fellows who'd done the fighting
Mm.
were with us. And while they were with us, look, there was a constant stream of just getting under the wire and walking up the hill where the grapes were ripe
Mm.
and feeding on grapes and coming back in when they had a feed.
Mm.
And these guards who'd done fighting, they took no notice.
Mm.
They turned a blind eye. They knew we were hungry,
Mm.
and they turned a blind eye. And then they were sent, they were called, obviously, to go to Russia. Yep. In their place, we got, now this is where the short pants come in, we got the Hitler Youth,
Oh.
young fellas,
Yeah.
about 16 or 17, that sort of thing, young, and summer uniform,
Yes.
and they come in and immediately they tightened up. You couldn't go out.
Right.
If you went out then, you risked getting shot.
Right.
Yeah. And we've got to get back in again. We don't want to be out here, but we didn't want to get away at that stage. So when he got up there, we ran for it. And he ran a bit faster than I did. I was trying hard enough, but he was a bit faster than me. And he got through the wire first. But as we got to the wire, we got to the wire. As we got to the wire, he got through, and I get through, and the guard turned. And when he turned, he's up with his machine gun, and he yells out. And if we'd have been coming the other way, he'd have
shot you.
But he hadn't been told, what do you do when they're running into the place? And that moment of indecision,
was enough.
I ran that way and I ran that way, and as we're getting further apart, he hadn't just had a good time. And he realised we were getting in there.
Yeah.
He'd have to check up with his officers. What do I do when they're running into it? I've been told, shoot if they're coming out.
Yeah.
But what about running in? So, well, no one else would have from our tent.
Okay.
No one, because those fellas shot. Now one day, 3 Greeks were further down towards the coast, further down towards the General Hospital. They were around the General Hospital. There was a Greek unit. They were prisoners too, but they'd been fighting in Crete with us. And they were one day 3 of them came through, and they crawled through a tunnel in daylight, and got up, and they ran up the hill. The vines are only that high.
Yes.
They don't have climbing vines, they have blackthorn type thing,
Yeah.
stakes about that high. And they bent over and they're running up, hoped that the guy wouldn't turn. They were running up the hill. And now, we shouldn't have done this, but it's funny how you can't help it. Everybody in the compound, look. And you know, that young fella, guard, he's looking, he's obviously looking, and then he sees everybody looking. Curiosity gets him too.
Yeah.
And up with his gun, bang! You know, it was from here, the length of the football field,
Yeah.
And he dropped the fellow in the middle just bang like that. They never shot the other 2, but that fellow was hit badly. All our badly wounded, who never did the march, they were put in that hospital. They never did the march. They were there all the time. They obviously couldn't march.
Right.
They were in the hospital, and there was quite a lot of wounded.
Yes.
They were in the hospital. Now, when I talk about wounded, during the fighting, there were a lot of our chaps wounded. And a hospital ship came in, obviously from Egypt, came in, red, printed all over her, Red Cross, and our wounded were transferred onto that, and there were hundreds of them at that time.
Yes.
I was on one of the hills, not too far away, but I could see the ship so plain. I couldn't see the men on the thing, but I could see the ship. It's a big ship, ship. I could see the ship so plain. One day, over came the Messerschmitts, and they went straight for this hospital ship. They wanted someone to shoot.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They wanted someone to shoot.
Yes. So then they'd have an excuse.
Oh, they sucked the thing in. Yeah. But they were genuinely wounded. When I got to Greece, when I left Crete and got to Greece, the first camp was Piraeus at the harbour for Athens, and we got into a Greek army barracks, and as we got in, Greek officers were being liberated. The Germans were liberating the Greek officers out of the camp, and we went in, and it was happening at the same time as we were going in, they were going out. And that night, the lights went out, and those bloody bedbugs come, and they actually bit.
Oh, the bedbugs.
They bit. They bit and brought down. But they were sore.
Yes.
But dark. You never saw them switch the light on and they're out, finished.
Yes.
Never saw them. The moment the lights went out,
Yeah.
within a minute, the bunnies were out and biting you.
And you could feel them crawling.
Well,
Yeah.
I wondered if I'd ever sleep,
Mm.
but you sleep.
Yeah.
But they were bad buggers.
So,
I was only there 2 or 3 nights.
so you had bed bugs and lice.
Yeah, I had both at that stage.
Right.
But I preferred the lice. at least it was painless sucking. They sucked all right. They sucked your blood.
Yeah.
Painless. Those
Yeah.
bloody bed bugs, they hurt.
Yes.
They were sore.
Yeah. How long would it have been between opportunities to have a shower or shave?
Well, never had a shave at all.
You never had a shave at all?
No shave at all. No shave at all. None.
Right.
We had no scissors.
Right.
No shaving with no scissors either.
No.
No shave.
So that was from the time you were captured?
In Crete we were on the sea coast and we
Yes.
could swim in the sea.
Right.
So we did have showers in Crete.
Yeah.
In the 2 or 3 days I was in Paris, no showers at all. And in Salonika we were away from the sea, no showers at all.
Right.
Nothing. No.
Nothing.
Oh, ablution. Wash your hands.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just wash.
Yeah.
No soap. Here's a funny thing. When we were going to leave Salonika on the trip to Germany, the Germans told us, they announced at the great big gathering, they announced you're going to be 7 or 8 days on the train. We're going to give you rations and you'll get nothing more till you reach Germany. And it'll be 7 or 8 days, you would know how to reach Germany. They laid it down there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Apart from water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We couldn't believe our luck. Every man, 1 tin of pork,
Mm-hmm.
and the other tin of bloodwurst, sausage.
Yeah.
Bloodwurst, yeah. Sausage, German sausage. And the pork, white pork, was absolutely marvellous, and the bloodwurst was absolutely marvellous. 2 tins we got, each. Yeah.
For 8 days? Was that to last you for 8 days?
8 days, yeah. 2 tins. Yeah. We must have only got 1 loaf, but we got 2 tins.
Yeah.
2 tins and 1 loaf. Now, you had a bag to carry it,
Mm-hmm.
and every man carried his own stuff. We got in the cattle trucks down at the station, or about a mile to walk to the station, just on 40 men in our carriage, all big long trailer, of course. Every man, 40 men in a carriage, was straw on the floor,
Yeah.
hard floor of course, straw on the floor, a little aperture that wide with barbed wire, but not big enough for a man to get out.
Yeah.
But barbed wire, you could see out,
Yes.
stand up, see it that high, but you stand up and see one at that end of the carriage and one at this end, so there was air flowing through.
Yeah.
40 men and straw on the floor, and a great big steel drum in one corner.
The
And
toilet.
every day the train stopped,
Yeah.
and that drum was emptied. It was always full, sometimes overflow. 1 carriage at a time. The train was stopped out in the open in the fields, not at the station.
Yeah.
Train was stopped every day, and 1 carriage at a time was taken out, marched about from here out in the open field, and you relieved yourself.
Oh, so that was just for urine?
Yeah.
That drum was just for urine?
Well, yes, it was just for urine,
Yeah,
for urine, yeah.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
You relieved yourself every day out
Yeah.
there in the field. And you had diarrhea, of course. Yeah. So you relieved yourself out there. And when they were saying, and water, and you got water.
Yeah.
Water, every day water. So, then you would march back and the doors locked in the next carriage until when everybody had been out, the train moved on again, once a day.
Right.
Yeah. Right. There were 40 men in our carriage, and I'd say only about 3 or 4 started in and started to gorge themselves.
Yeah.
And on the bread and on this, and they were desperately sick.
Yeah.
Desperately sick.
Yes. Yes.
And of course, in 2 or 3 days they had nothing, no meat and no bread. And they had no sympathy, none. But by eating that when they were already starving, they were desperately sick.
Yeah.
I remember up in Belgrade, that's up in, after about 3 or 4 days up in Belgrade, up at the top end of Serbia, just before we went into Hungary. They stopped and they took 2 or 3 jokers out of our carriage who probably wouldn't live. They probably wouldn't live. They probably overdone it. They probably wouldn't live. But we didn't have quite so many in the carriage. Slightly easier. But when we arrived outside Lambsdorff in Poland, there were quite a few of us, and I'd be one of them, still had a little bread left.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had any meat left,
Yeah.
but we still had a little bread left because we'd been prisoners a long time and we knew the Germans wouldn't go back on their word.
Yeah.
And it might have been 9 days instead of 8.
Yes.
We still had a little bit. But only about 3 or 4 couldn't resist it.
Yeah.
All the others,
Measured it out.
they guarded it like your life.
Yes.
Guarded it with your life. And there was no thieving.
Right.
No thieving. Because at that stage, they might have been killed if they'd have thieved. If they'd been caught thieving, they might have been just strangled. Our uniform was taken off us, and we got a full army uniform, serge.
Right. Right.
Warm,
Yeah.
full.
Supplied by the Germans.
Yeah. Now, we were still lousy.
Yes.
Before we got this, they marched us down to the gas chambers. While we were in there, the clothes were taken around there, and they must have been taken away to a place where they put them in and hot steam. They steamed them and killed all the lice and the eggs, because once that was printed, your clothes were lice-free. Lice-free. Now, we went in there, standing up there, jammed in as tight as you could, like sardines, and the door was closed. And nothing happened. Pitch black, nothing happened. And then all
What
of
did
a
you
sudden,
think was going to happen?
they cut.
What did you think was going to happen?
We hadn't a clue. Hadn't a clue.
No idea.
No idea. No idea. None at all. We'd only been in Lambsdorff 2 or 3 days. And we'd just come off 8 days in the train, only 2 or 3 days. No idea. It was just another thing. All of a sudden, down for up the nostrils, up in the ceiling, down came this hot water, almost scalding.
Yeah.
Hot water, and it drenched you, and it went. This hot water came, the engine pumping the water, see, through the sprays, the nozzles, absolutely drenched you with real hot water.
Yeah.
And then engine stopped. And we came into this great big round thing with big wide open doors, and we went, open doors on the other side opened, and we all went out. And there were our clothes waiting for us. We worked amongst the Germans, and there were a lot of Czechs too, a lot of Czechs. In that eastern Germany, there were a lot of Czechs taken from the Czech Republic to work in Germany. So we worked amongst the Germans, and all German civilians, not soldiers, civilians. And worked with them every day.
Okay.
Tell you what we did work with. We worked with 15 and 16-year-old boys.
Yes.
And then they were called up to the army, and they went away to Russia. And then they come back and they come and visit us and talk to us. They'd worked with us.
Yeah.
They went to Russia as soldiers, come back and talk to us.
Those that
We
lived.
knew them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we knew them.
Yeah. Army discipline still in place?
The first, when we were taken prisoner in Crete, the officers walked with the men.
Mm-hmm.
The officers walked with the men all the way, all the way with the men. When we got to the camp in Crete, the officers, we slept on the ground in the open, but the officers were given tents slightly apart from us in tents.
Right.
And they were only there a week, and we never saw an officer again in the whole of my prison life.
Right.
They all went to offlags, we went to stabbings.
Right.
They went to officers' camps, we went to... Officers knew absolutely nothing about what happened in Germany. They were taken to offlags, which was great big barbed wire enclosures out in nowhere, and they never were allowed outside the camp. They were not allowed to work. They were not allowed outside. They knew absolutely nothing about what went on in Germany. Private soldiers and corporals were forced to work.
Yeah.
You were forced to work. And you worked amongst civilians. And you worked in mines and factories and railway yards and roads and everything, forests. You worked with guards. And you worked amongst civilians. So you knew what happened. Officers knew absolutely nothing. After the war, the media outlets go straight to the officers. What happened in Germany? They knew absolutely nothing. They had absolutely nothing about what happened in Germany, nothing at all.
Yeah.
But they did get in the papers.
Yes.
Now, the papers had got the wrong idea of what happened in Germany.
Right.
Completely wrong, because they were the wrong people. You won't believe this. This is true. After I'd been working at the mine for a while, I ran away. And they caught me, and they sent me back to Lambsdorff, and I was put way up in the far corner from the gates, right up in the far corner. One day, at all those men, there was an announcement. Hey, to Clary. I heard my name. Yeah. So he called me over. These German officers, they brought out a parcel, a 10-pound Red Cross parcel. And it's mine. That's what it took me out. Red Cross parcel. I'm in the prison camp, remember, doing 6 months strafe. That's right. So they opened it up, and they took it up, and there were tins of milk, there were tins of fruit, tins of meat, fish, tin of meat, fish. There was biscuits, there was cheese, there was milk powder, tea leaves, tea, a tin butter, a beautiful parcel of food. Now, seeing that I was a prisoner, they paid particular attention to this parcel. This parcel came from my mates. They got back to Egypt.
Right.
Most of them got back to Egypt.
Yeah.
And they went up the desert. And they must have come in with enough money.
Yeah.
And they arranged to have a parcel sent to, probably to England from Egypt. Russia had been in the war 3 weeks after I was taken prisoner. Russia went into the war. 3 weeks after, middle of June. When I got to Lambsdorff, there were thousands of Russian prisoners in those blocks, same as there were thousands of British prisoners. There were thousands of Russian prisoners. And on our side, when we got there, as I said, we began to get, we got Red Cross uniforms straight away, we got boots straight away, we had no boots, and boots would get worn out, new boots, new clothes, new uniform, and the Russians had nothing. They had no Red Cross. We began to get tins of food, we'd get a tin of this, issued once a week, between 2,
Right.
but it was meat.
Right.
Meat. And we'd perhaps get we'd perhaps get half a packet of biscuits between the two as well, once a week, which was very little, but with the clothes and the boots and that, and the products are better when you get out on a working party, we weren't too bad.
Right.
We were still horribly hungry because the German rations were poor.
I mean, you told me what the German rations were back in Crete. What were the German rations in that camp? What would they be made up of?
Mainly potatoes.
Right.
And boiled potatoes in the skin.
In the skin, so just
and a bit of stinking cheese. They had fish cheese in pellets. Fish cheese in pellets was one of their main things. And you had a ration of rye bread.
Fish cheese sounds interesting.
Eh?
Fish cheese sounds interesting.
It's smelly, but it was nutritious.
Right.
It was smelly, horrible smell, but it was nutritious, and you could eat it. And with the bread, that's what you got for bread. And potatoes in the skin. That was the main thing. We had that.
Yeah.
On the other side, the Russians had nothing.
Right.
They just had the Germans' basic ration, and by gosh, it was poor.
Yeah.
They were starving. Our fellows were in fairly small compounds with different groups. For instance, there was the Jewish group, the punishment group, there was a group for mercantile prisoners, ones that there were Indians and Chinese and people off ships. But just that was another compound. They were civilians actually.
Right.
Yeah. And then there were just the ordinary other compounds. So there were 4 or 5 or 6 smaller compounds, but still a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the Russians tend to be in huge paddocks, all grouped together. Yeah. They're all Russians.
Yeah.
No Red Cross, you see.
No.
Absolutely no help at all from Stalin. None at all.
Right.
They were just treated as sheep. In the prison camps, we did get a cigarette allowance.
Okay.
Through the Red Cross.
Right.
50 a week we got. And I got 50 a week and I never smoked.
Well, that would have been a good trading.
Well, that meant a cake of chocolate every time.
I was going to say, that'd be quite high currency.
I was pretty well off in the prison camp, and there's 50 cigarettes I didn't the judge towards the end of the week, they'd give you anything for a cigarette.
Yes.
They'd already smoked the butts 2 or 3 times.
Right.
Without the Red Cross parcel, we would have been the same as the Russians. A lot of us would have starved, died. A lot of us would have died. Yeah.
So, both the Russians and you were getting the same German rations? Yes,
they would get the same rations.
Right.
And we would have starved the same way as we starved in Crete. We would have starved. The Russians starved. But you see, the German prisoners in Russia starved too and died.
Yes.
And the Russian prisoners in Germany starved and died.
Yes.
Because they had no Red Cross.
Right.
In 1953, before the Russians joined the Red Cross movement, they had no Red Cross.
Right.
No mail, nothing at all. With no morning tea, but we didn't work fast. We couldn't work fast. We'd never done any work for 4 months. We had no muscles, and we were starving. But at midday, they took us back to the barracks. We were right in the town. Our barracks were beside the sugar beet factory.
What was this town, sorry?
Neustadt was the town. Neustadt. Neusdorf. Neusdorf.
Right.
Yeah. It was the town. At midday we were taken back and had our meal, and then we came back and worked till 6 at night. And at 6 at night it was dark. All the time we were there, we hardly saw the sun at all. It was overcast, and at times it was foggy, but it was always a misty, cold, misty sort of an atmosphere. It was depressing. The one good thing about that party was was for the first time since we'd been taken prisoner, we had more than we could eat. More than we could eat. It comprised mainly boiled potatoes in the skins. At midday, for the first and only time in Germany, we had a lifesaver. At midday, we got a bowl full of scalded skim milk. And it was absolutely marvellous. We hadn't had milk since we were taken prisoner. And after 6 weeks of the steaming potatoes and the steaming skim milk, at the finish our diarrhea had cleared up. Get 1 or 2 of those as a ration a day. And that was not nitrogen, protein. That was protein.
Yeah.
That took the place of meat.
Yeah.
But we also got the horse flesh. The mine was a mile from our billets. We built it in a school.
Yes.
A commandeered school in Mirosi. That was the name of the town, Mirosi. And we walked every day to the mine. Well, one day I doubled back. I might have told you.
Yes, you did. Yes.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was one day I ran away.
Yeah.
Another time at the mine, having successfully eluded the guard that time, another time, a dark night, I filled my car with a lamp, and instead of going to the pit head, I doubled round and ran away out in the paddock and peered out, and the guard didn't report me missing, and the people I worked, the two chicks and a German I worked with down below must have thought I was sick or wasn't put somewhere else. They didn't report me, so no one reported me. I was away all night, but the snow was that deep on the ground, and it was black, pitch black when I ran away. Otherwise I couldn't have got away, you see me. I pitch black, but I wasn't away very long before a great big round moon came out in the snow, and I walked all night, and I figured out when the snow melts and the springtime comes, I'm going to run away for good, because I hated the mine, it was horrible. I come back, and just as the moon was going down, it started to get dark, I crept back into it and waited where the jokers got changed from the mine stuff, gumboots and stuff, and where the guard picked them all up. I melded in, and he never noticed I wasn't there, or he didn't pay any attention. And I walked back, and next day in the mine, they provided us with gumboots, gummy stiffles, and walking in the snow, those damn things, I didn't know at the time, because I was on the high, you think, I didn't know at the time, but when I got home next morning, my bloody heels were skinned badly. So I took them off, and I held them in my hand, and I said, look what the mine gumboots are doing to my heels. That's your fault. It's the mine's fault. These damn things don't fit. They're skinning my heels. I can't work with those. They gave me 2 days of shit. It was my fault. We came to the sugar beet factory in October, and I never ran away till May. So that was the best part of 8 months since I started working. And of the 40 men in that party who came from Labrador, no one had ever escaped. No one ran away. No one.
They never tried?
No, never tried. No one.
Did anybody talk about it?
Oh, they talk about it all the time. But the guards made it clear, anybody caught escaping would be shot.
Right.
And that, a lot of chokers talk to it, 2 kids been shot. I come to the conclusion, after dodging the guard the first time and not saying anything, and been away and getting away with the skin, he was come to the conclusion that I could get away with it. I could get away with it.
Yeah.
I didn't. I think it was bluff.
Do you mean that
Right.
they would shoot you if they saw you escaping, or they would shoot you if they'd found you?
What they must have meant is, if they caught you running away and you didn't stop, bang.
They'd shoot you.
Yeah.
Right.
But if they caught you in a place where there was no risk for them, they'd just take you back into static again.
Right.
And that's what happened.
Did you have plans following that to
No.
get away? You just wanted
None
you
at all.
wanted to get away from where you were.
If I got down to the Czech Republic, something might have happened.
Right.
Just like the cobra, something might have turned up. Yeah.
And anything would have been better than where you were.
Yeah, well, that's right. At the time, I'd had enough of the mine.
Yes.
Yeah, I was sick of the mine. Horrible.
But why was it that bad? I mean, it sounds boring, but you were being fed.
I'll tell you one of the worst things. It wasn't the work in the mine. I was there 5 months at that mine, and I reckon I averaged 2 hours sleep.
Oh, really?
No sleep, because the jokers that came off shift and the jokers getting ready to go on shift, they made a hell of a noise.
Yes.
No consideration at all. Some jokers must have had less sleep than me. I was away 5 days, and they caught me, and things just happened, and I'll tell you about things happened. I was escorted back to Lambsdorff, and the guard walked behind me, walked up through the alleys, barbed wire alleys with high barbed wire on both sides. The alleys in the camp in Lambsdorff, big, about that width.
Yes.
So, and you walked up the alley. The guard behind me walked up, and I come to the Strafe compound. We're at the far end of Lambsdorff on the left-hand side as you come from the gate. I come to the Strafe compound, and the guard let me in, and I was no sooner in the compound than 3 joggers from the Mirazi mine, they came up. They had escaped. The night after I left, they left, and they were caught the same night. And they landed in Lambsdorff, and they were there. They were there when I came.
Right.
They were there. They were old hands. It'd been about 3 days when I came. They'd be wondering where I was.
Yes.
Because I'll bet you, when I escaped, the Germans say, "Oh, yeah, we caught him and shot him."
Yes.
That's what they always say.
Yes.
Oh, we came and shot him. So when I arrived, he's come back from the dead. But by that time, they'd realised they weren't shot either.
Right.
So
yes.
it was a story.
Right.
They were caught and taken back to the camp, and they got a hiding. They got a hiding. They never laid a hand. When they caught me, they never laid a hand on me. But away 5 days, never laid a hand on me. One joker, he came from Mara. He apparently got out of the actual barracks, not at the mine. I got away from the mine.
Mm-hmm.
He got out at the barracks, and I don't know how he did it, but he must have made a noise getting out because they caught him, and he was shot.
Oh.
Not the first time.
Mm-hmm.
He got out, and they caught him, and put him back in the barracks again. But he did the same trick again 2 or 3 nights later. He was going out to see a girl.
Oh, yeah.
And he was caught the first time, and they put him back in. He went out again and they shot him. First night, you're wondering if you're going to get caught. You're wondering if somebody's going to jump up and catch you. I was going on. All of a sudden, on the bank, a hell of a rush in the corn, in the crop, blast of grass, and something jumped out in front of me. Oh, hell, he's got me. A deer had been eaten in the ground. I went round the bend up here, I come up, and I went straight this way. I should have gone straight that way.
Right.
I walked all night,
Yeah.
and towards morning, do you know where I landed up?
Back where you started.
Beside the apple tree with the
Right.
ladder up against it. Oh, it broke me down.
Oh, it would. Yeah.
It broke me down. I walked 2 nights,
Yes.
got nowhere. The first night I got down on the plain, I had to do what I thought I would do. I had to sleep in the corn. and the corners were that high. And I told you that I run against a little creek that came, it was a factory about a quarter of a mile up the creek, and I came below the factory to dodge the factory. But I got beside that creek and had a few mouthfuls of water, the best I could, just not too much, because I didn't like the thought of the factory being up there. I thought the water would be pretty poor, but I had to have water. I stuck to the side of the road and I'm walking along, and I thought, when I come near a village, I will go out and skirt it.
Yeah.
Go right away around the outside, well away so they won't bother seeing me, well away, and join it, and I'll carry on that road. Roughly, it's not going straight where I want, but it's roughly where I'm going. Well, I was going along there after midnight, and I'm overconfident now. I'm overconfident. I've been away this the fifth night. I'm overconfident. A joker stepped out from behind a damn cherry tree. A yellow armbanded patrol, German patrol, civilian, with a yellow armband, with a swastika on it, with a double-barrel shotgun. And he stopped out when he saw me back from the hill of the mailbox. Stopped out. That was it. I couldn't get away from him. Broad moonlight. Yeah. So I could have been shot there, but he didn't shoot me. No. But he stopped me, and then he beckoned me to carry on, and he stood aside, well out to the side, and I walked past him and carried on, and he walked behind me, took me into the local town. He escorted me to the town, handed me over to the police station there. June of July 42. Now he took me into this police cell. I had a bag with me. Well, I thought, it's only a matter of time, and he's got to demand to see what's in that bag. And I thought, there's still bread in that bag. I better eat it. If I don't eat it, he should take it off me. So, I'm pretty impulsive. I thought, yes, I'd eat it now. I went down, put my hand in the bag. The table shot off.
All right.
And papers all over the floor. All over the floor. And he's standing up there, and he's got his hand on the pistol, and he's looking me right in the eye there. Yeah. And I still got my hand in the bag. And I laughed. No, I didn't laugh, but I smiled. I said, I knew I'd made a mistake. I knew I'd made a mistake. Yeah, I smiled. And I said, no pistol and no knife. Kein Messer, Pistole, no Pistole, kein Messer, kein Pistole. And I left my hand in there. I said, nur Brot, only bread. And I slowly pulled the bread out. And that's it. He pulled his table back up. He got down on one knee with the revolver in one hand, and he picked all his papers up and put them on the table. The whole, watch me, I went on eating. I went on eating my bread. 2 or 3 hours later, he got up and he beckoned me to get up beside me, and I stood up beside him. This time his revolver must have been in his holster, and he pointed out the whole of the Russian advance. He pointed out, we're there, and we're here, and we're there, and so and so and so on. And it's only a matter of time we're going to be capture Moscow, we'll have that, and Russia will be finished. See? I'd be one of the very few prisoners in Germany who had the full extent of the Russian-German border explained to me in July by a top man. Yeah. And he was perfectly friendly. No problem. He never touched me. Never touched me. Next morning, 2 German staff officers had come to pick me up. Pick me up. Yeah. And that policeman handed me over. Never searched my bag. They didn't know what was in my bag. They took delivery of me. Told me to get in the two-door car, get in the back seat with my bag in the back seat. And the two of them got in, left the police station, and they drove away out to Sternberg, that were their staff headquarters, out, a beautiful day in the country. I had a wonderful ride in the back seat. They'd ask me a question now and again.
Yeah.
And the two of them sitting there, I could lean over like this, and I could have banged their heads together.
Yeah.
And then they'd have shot me.
Yeah.
They took me to the headquarters, took me along the street, about 200 or 300 yards along the street, and handed me over to the green policeman. There was a navy blue policeman in the police station before.
Yeah.
And I called back over my shoulder, "Where are you taking me?" "I'm taking you out to be shot." Oh, God, I tell you, that was one of the worst moments I had in my whole 4 years of prison camp.
Yeah.
Because that shot at dawn. I thought, caught escaping, you'll be shot. I thought I wasn't going to be shot. I thought that's the finish. My God, it was a nasty feeling.
I bet it is.
Oh, horrible feeling. You're hungry, you're cold, you're annoyed with yourself, you're disgusted with everything, everything. And he took you out to be shot. Oh, God, I thought he meant it.
Yes.
But, see, he had a sense of humour. He was escorting me back to the railway station. And eventually, he's walking behind me all the way. He must have had a hell of a joke to himself, walking all the way. We got near the station and I see people coming in to get on the train. Probably a work train, you see, because it was early, probably a work train. And as soon as I saw all these people coming, I thought, he's not going to shoot me here. Well, when we got to the station, okay, and got on the train, and he just sat there in the bloody carriage with me, and went around about midday. He stopped at a German barracks. Then after that, he took me into a yard and into a building, and there were 3 other prisoners there that picked up from somewhere else, and they were all going back to Lambsdorff, and I joined them, and 4 of us went back to Lambsdorff under guard. Back where I started, but this time I'm in the staff barracks.
Right.
The staff barracks and the punishment barracks.
Okay.
And I was there for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. But I never did take a word for 6 weeks, and it wasn't too bad, except the fact I was desperately hungry.
Yeah.
No work.
Right.
There were up to 300 there in that little compound.
And they're all being punished?
All being punished, yes.
For escaping? Or?
No work, escaping. I don't know what they're there for, but...
Did you get any Red Cross parcels while you were in there?
Nobody got Red Cross parcels.
Right.
Not to my knowledge.
No.
There were nothing distributed. Nothing. That was for the ones who went into solitary confinement. And I never got into solitary confinement. I was so lucky. My mate, he went into solitary confinement. He did, I think, a fortnight solitary confinement. Solitary confinement, they were locked up 23 and a half hours, half an hour a day they got out. And I watched them come out, just the barbed wire, and we could see them all. They come out into a little compound, and there were about 20 or so in single cells, and they walked in single file round about, it'll be 30 yards long and about 10 yards wide, and they walked up and down, and guards, of course, watching them, up and around for half an hour. Then they'll take them back to themselves and locked up. That's the last. We didn't see them again for another 24 hours when they come out, half an hour again. And I was lucky. I was due to go in there. I was supposed to go in there, but there were so many of us in the main lot that by the time those fellows did a fortnight in the cells, they didn't have enough cells. And by the time they'd done the fortnight, some of them did a month. But my mate did fortnights. By the time they'd all served and come out, the Germans, it was July 1944, 1942, July 1942 this was, 12 months after we took prison. July 1942 was midsummer, and the Germans wanted the labour, so even though you were in the Strafe, I'd waited 6 months, 6 weeks, and it had got me in, and they called for volunteers to come out on a work party. Well, I thought, well, in 2 or 3 days or a week, I'm going in there for solitary, because my mate went in. He was so lucky as me, he went in. I thought, well, I'll be going into solitary, so I volunteered to go out, and I went out. We landed up at a place called Metzdorf, and it was a lime factory, and we were continually loading stone, pushing it in, pulling it back, and we did that. We did that for until we heard that Stalingrad had fallen.
Ah, all right.
When we heard Stalingrad had fallen, we were thinking, this is a hell of a job. There must be easier jobs somewhere in Germany. This is a hell of a job. Well, my mind went back to the mine. The second job I'd been on, the mine, before I ran away.
Yes.
And down the mine, at least there was no snow.
Yes.
And it was warm compared with up on top.
Yes.
And my mind went, must be a better job than this. So one day, the 4 of us decided, no, we've had this. It won't work. It was me, Lynn Sotheby, George Leghorn, and a Scottish sergeant. I was the smallest.
Yeah.
But I was also the spokesman, because the others didn't claim to have any German. So the under officer started to talk to me. But before he started to talk to me, he got the Gefreiter, fixed his bayonet and poke at my stomach. He just about that far away, didn't he?
Yeah.
Not in my stomach, but
Yes.
close enough that you boof like that and be in my stomach.
Yes.
So, yeah. So then he started to talk to me, work. No, I'm not going to work. No. Not going to work on this job. Finish on this job. No, finish here. And I spoke what little German I had. Enough to tell me, wasn't going to work on this job. We've had enough of this job. I had to work on this job. Work again, second time, work. No. Third time, work. No. But just before he said the third time, there'd been a lot of noise. They started yelling, you see, they were trying to make us work. He wasn't just saying work. He yelled it out, work,
Yes.
Schillingberg, the boss of the mine, the boss of the factory, who owned these 3 quarries, he walks up with his great big yellow dog. And as he walks up, and hears the sergeant saying, work, and then not work, he walks up and he says, shoot him! Oh, God, shoot him. Now, when he said shoot them, the under officer, but he hadn't fixed his bayonet.
Right.
He just had the rifle.
Yeah.
But his Gefreiter had the bayonet poking my stomach. Yeah. But when the boss Schellenberg said shoot them, the Gefreiter, the under officer, lost his temper, and he obviously didn't want to shoot me, because they were pretty. They were under orders not to shoot. I'm sure they were under orders not to shoot if there was any other way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so he got his rifle, turned it round, and he swung into me hip, bang into me hip.
Yeah.
And I saw it coming, and I put my hand and it hit me from there. Didn't do any damage. Oh, that's no good. Swung again, a little bit higher up in my ribs. And I parried that too, because I see what he was aiming for, parried it in my ribs. And I parried that. And he'd get the wild, and he's roaring there, and he swings this time he swings my head. Well, I put my hand up like this, and of course he hit me arm and bowled me right over my back.
Right.
And then he stood over me. Then he stood over me with the rifle butt. And he's going to, I think he was going to crack my head.
Yeah.
I was lying on the board,
Yeah.
looking up at him,
Yeah.
and he stood over me, and he had his bloody rifle butt like this. And he lost his temper by this time, after the general told him to shoot
Yeah.
them. He lost his temper. I think he got to hit me. Do you know what went through my mind?
No.
you're going to smash your rifle, but
Yeah.
my head's not going to be there. but it never come to that. Just as he was, I suppose, just as he was going to do it,
Yeah.
my mate who was standing beside me and hadn't taken any part, punched him in the ribs.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good, it was good, yeah. He punched him in the ribs. God, he turned round from me. He swung into me, mate, hit him in the stomach. But I got up, I was up.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're all on our feet again.
Yes.
Now, it's at this stage that you can't believe it unless you saw it.
Mm.
In the barracks was a cockney,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd be 5'2", and a little wee thin gentleman, but he had a great spirit. And he started to yell, and all the way down the stairs and across the river, he's coming across at double speed, he's yelling at the top of his voice, and the under officer, he lost. And the boss of the quarry, Schillenberg, I can't understand how the hell he got out of the guardhouse. They probably thought all the others in the club were out there too, you see.
Right.
There might have been a couple of rifles in there too, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, hey, they lost interest in us.
Yeah.
And look at this joker coming across. And he came right over, and you know, he talked the big fellow down.
Yeah.
He was about that big, much bigger than him. He talked him down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the two that he hit, me and Len, that he hit, we were taken over and stuck underneath the barracks on a potato cellar in the cellar. Next morning, us two, plus George Leghorn, who'd been working with us, but they hadn't punished on the day. The three of us, but not the sergeant. As I said, the sergeant got out because he could say, I'm a sergeant, I don't work anyway.
Mm.
So, but the three of us, George Leghorn and two of us, we were marched down, and there was a lorry waiting, one of the works lorries, and they took us from there, and as we left, the under officer had hit us, punched us. He's going like this, in front of his head. Mere discipline, my leavers, mere discipline. More discipline, my fellows.
Yeah.
Mere discipline. And they do this with the fingers open and waving in front of this means, by Christ, you're in for trouble.
Right.
Well, we went about 20 mile up in the lorry and put us in this place at Goldenstein. Now, that was February 1943 when Stalingrad fell, and I was still there when the war finished. I had no desire to change. That was a perfect place.
Goldenstein.
Oh, it was so easy. Yeah,
Right.
it was so easy. It was still Schillenberg's quarries,
Yeah.
but it was so easy. And yet it was going to be so bad.
Yes.
And nearly, only a small party, only 20, and it looked as if it was going to be so bad. But they were nearly all there for refusing to work or indiscipline or running away. They all had a history. And they put them all together in the one party. And there was no trouble at all. Because they only worked 4 hours a day.
4 hours a day.
That's all. And even so, better, Len and I, the two that hit down at Red, we worked 4 hours in the afternoon.
Right.
1 till 5.
Wow.
Even better, no guard. He just opened the gate. We walked up through the village, reported to the gaffer in the quarry, and when the time came to knock off, we said, well, we're going back to the lager now, and the joker, Carter and the stable, he let us go, walked back, and there was no thought of us escaping. Hell, we'd never landed on our feet like that anywhere. Start with the afternoon, the guard came down and sat on the floor amongst us
Yeah.
and said, the war is over. And you'd have thought, oh, marvellous. Nothing.
No.
Absolutely nothing. We'd been prisoners for 4 years and the war is over. Well, it's just like breakfast tomorrow.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
it meant nothing to us really.
Yeah.
Because we the bloody Russians were all around us. We couldn't go back and join the British or the Americans. The bloody Russians, they're worse enemies than the Germans. We didn't know anything about them. But there were no Russians. The Russians went 2 prongs, one to Vienna, one to Berlin, and they got there.
Yeah.
But they got to the outskirts of Vienna, and the Russians and British told them to go back.
Right.
That's not in the Yalta Agreement.
Yes.
You can go into Berlin and take it, but you can't go into Vienna. That's,
Oh, okay.
you can't do it. You've got to stop on the outskirts. We left the valley and went directly west, which was the only direct route west. There was only side routes, but this direct route west was our main route, went west. So, round about daylight, we turned off the gully, off that big long valley, turned towards the west, on the road west. Now, we walked all that day. The road was covered with civilians going. I don't know, you couldn't say thousands, just mobs of civilians.
Where was everybody heading?
West.
What was west?
The German border, where the Russians were.
Right. Why did they want to go there?
Well, they didn't want to go east to the Russians, did they?
Oh, I see.
Well,
right.
Where were they going to go?
Yes.
It was bloody helpless.
Yeah. So,
We
before...
never saw a Russian.
No.
We never saw a Russian. The war was over.
Yeah.
We never saw a Russian.
But people were driven by the worry or fear that the Russians
Fear.
were coming.
Fear.
Yeah.
Oh, they knew the Russians were coming.
Right.
Fear.
Yeah.
And so if they walked west, although they knew Berlin had fallen,
Yeah.
there was this space, as I say, there was no fighting in the Czech Republic.
Right.
And we were up on the hills in
Yeah.
the Czech Republic. Now, going west, eventually they would get into Germany, and they must have known that the Russians, when they took Berlin, would fan out along the border. But that was their only hope. If they waited, they would certainly be occupied. Got up quietly, walked out of the room, down the stairs, and set off, still west, same way as we were going, but on my own. I walked all that day. I got into a village, and in that village, in the street, there were women crying. Actually, it's the first time I saw women cry in Germany. And they were saying, in German, we know what the Russians will do. See, the Russians had occupied their country until the Germans drove them out.
Yes. Yeah.
We know what the Russians will do. And they were crying. They were scared. They knew the Russians were coming in. Now, the border was a trick station there and a trick station there and flat ground in between. No fence, no river, just paddock. But it was a line of sight.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally artificial. And these Czechs were guarding it. I passed there, they saw me in uniform, and I had no trouble getting past. The Germans would be stopped.
Yeah.
And taken. Yeah. Well, I walked into the Czech Republic and I got to a village, Pesin, P-E-C-C-I-N, Pesin, a Czech village. That evening, the first of the Russian tanks came into the square. All the other civilians, mob tank too, they all went, and all pleased to see the Russians.
Right. Yeah.
But they knew they were coming, they were pleased to see them.
Yes.
Yeah. And this Czech spoke 5 languages.
Wow. Yeah.
His own language,
Yes.
German,
Yeah.
Russian,
Yeah. English.
English, and I think it was Italian.
Right. Yeah.
5 languages he spoke. He went up and he spoke to the Russian in the tank. Spoke to the Russian in the tank and made him welcome. Obviously, I couldn't understand what they were saying, but it was in Russian, see. He climbed out, down he came and fell flat in his face. He was as drunk as a skunk. He'd been celebrating. I was interested in the Russians. When I got liberated, the main thing was that I was free. But the main thing the Russians, those 2 Russians talked about, I only was with them for about an hour. But the main thing they talked about was food.
Mm-hmm.
And their food didn't interest me. It was rye bread and meat. How they were going to gorge themselves on rye bread and meat. You see, they'd starved.
Yes.
Food was a big thing. Food wasn't so much important to us. We'd been pretty well fed that wilderness time. While I was there, a unit of British prisoners who'd been liberated, but all stuck together, about a couple of hundred of them, arrived in Rushnell from the German border. They'd arrived down, they'd probably come down the same road as I'd come, but after me. And there's a couple of hundred of them, and they stopped there in the village. Next morning, the Czechs laid on a train. Well, that's where I joined up again with all this lot of people. I didn't know at the time, but a lot of kids had tried to get into the carriages. And it caught quite a few too.
Yeah.
But they were searching. Well, the church that it came to ours. They flung the door open and put a lantern up and looked at the first fellow's face. He was asleep. Just pointed the rifle behind. One fellow with that lantern, there, there. And the rifle followed. Come to me. Now I was looking right into the point of the lantern and right into the barrel of the gun. When they pulled the trigger, I was looking straight into it. They pulled the trigger. Now, they say you don't see the bullet.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see the bullet. But you wouldn't be surprised. You'd be surprised if you didn't know. In the dark with the lantern, I saw something come out of that rifle barrel that you wouldn't believe. I saw a full-size red cricket ball come out of that barrel. And the bullet, when that German saw that, he got even further behind me, but he couldn't hide properly because there's no room, you see. But he got in he couldn't quite hide, but they shot at him. Now the bullet must have gone past my nose by about that much, or perhaps that much. God, it was close. But I didn't realise at the time, but what amazed me was about that far, or perhaps that far, great big thing like this.
Would that be the flame?
Flame?
Yeah.
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 I didn't realise. Flame.
Yes.
In daylight you don't see it.
No.
By at night you see it.
Yes.
And when you're looking into the thing and it comes out, but you don't see the bullet.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, it wasn't a blank.
No.
It went, he missed the German, missed me, missed the German. They probably,
Was he aiming at you or the kid?
hey?
Was he aiming at you or the boy?
Oh, he was aiming at the German.
He was aiming at the German.
Oh, he wasn't aiming at me.
Yeah, no.
He wasn't even interested. Well, he might have been interested in me.
Yeah.
And that's probably why I shot a bit wide
Yeah.
and missed the German. But went through the wooden side of the carriage, and the chicks out on the veranda had been following the lantern along.
Yeah.
And when he shot, there's a hell of a row out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, plowed into one of them, but they didn't waste any time. They just rushed in and grabbed the fella, whooped him out,
Yeah.
and took him away. I followed him. I went out. They took this kid into a concrete cul-de-sac, an implement shed, I suppose. Only about 6 foot wide and about 6 or 8 foot long. They already had about 5 or 6 kids lined up against a rough concrete wall.
Yeah.
And 2 jokers. One joker had a rifle with a bayonet
Yeah.
stuck in the kid's back,
Yeah.
and another joker was whispering in his ear, asking him questions. And when he didn't get an answer, bash! Smash his head into the concrete. Whispered in his ear again. Bash! I waited until I saw that happen, and the kid sunk to his knees. I didn't wait any more.
Did you feel sorry for him?
Partly.
Yeah.
Partly, yes. Partly, yes. Because I knew what the Czechs were doing. They were brutal. They were brutal. Revenge. They were brutal.
Yes.
They treated the Germans that caught then far worse than I ever saw the Germans treat Czechs or any of our fellows. Far worse. But you see, I didn't see the torture chambers.
No, no.
But in ordinary working Germany, that never happened. Violence never happened. But I saw it happen there.
Yeah.
But there's no authority, no rules, no authority. They just mob rule. After about 3 days, the Czechs arranged another train.
Yeah.
And that train took us all the way south of Prague. Some of my mates, I left my mates on that castle I told you, I left them. They got home, 2 of those fellows left early before me.
Yes.
I don't know what happened to the others, but the others got home too.
Yeah.
Because I saw some of them later. I corresponded with them from here in letters. They got home too, but a different way. But 2 of my mates got home. They were waiting for me in Broadstairs. But they went through Prague.
Right. Yeah.
And in Prague, they said, on the Prague railway station, there was a big long line of Germans tied up by ankles.
Yeah.
And they'd been left to die.
Gosh.
Hadn't been killed, they'd been left to die.
Just hung there.
And by the time they got there, they were dead. We'd crossed the border.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
Czechs would have taken us right into Germany,
Yes.
but that viaduct was
They
gone.
put you across,
So
yeah.
it suited them. They didn't particularly want to take us any further anyway, but they would have,
Yeah.
but they couldn't. Yeah. So they'd go back. Yeah. But we all marched on. But in that German village was the first time I saw the destruction of the bombing. It wasn't the only one, but in that village, town I suppose it was, we passed the railway station and there were 7 or 8 lines of rails and there was just a jumbled mass here and there, a carriage upside down and an engine, and that was at the yards. But the building was about 3 stories and the building was just, I can remember the one front in the street was just a wall standing up, no windows, and part of the wall missing, and rubble in the street. Absolutely, completely wrecked. It wouldn't be possible to do anything with it. We got out, and we moved away, and the planes went straight back to Germany again for another lot. Oh, it was quick, it was well done, oh, beautifully well done. It was just like this, all the time.
Were they DC-3s, were they?
Decoders,
Yeah.
decoders. We were there a while, and then another lot of transport planes came in. These were Lancasters, British Lancasters.
Oh, yes.
They came into Brussels, and we did the same there. Every plane lot we got in, we flew up over the channel, we landed at Guildford. Now it's either Surrey or Sussex, I'm not sure of those 2 counties. We landed at Guildford, and we got in, we were built at that night in great big, these circular roofs places, just low. They were apparently like no edges, so the aircraft couldn't pick them up, you see. I don't know how long we were there, probably, I don't know whether they were a day or 2 days, but a train came, took us into London, down from London to Isle of Thanet, which is the Dover coast, and we didn't go to Dover, struck the coast somewhere there, we went up past Margate to a little place between Margate and Ramsgate, a little place, Broadstairs, right on the sea. This is right on the English Channel.
Yeah.
And we were mounted right on the edge of the white Dover cliffs, in a 2 or 3 story hotel there. We were built in there. And that's where I run up against the 2 fellows that left in that castle. And they'd been there for 24 hours. And I had 2 or 3 days in Edinburgh, and came back again on the Flying Scotsman. And back to London again. And after 6 weeks, I got a passage on the Andes, which left from Liverpool, and again, was down Brussels, went on the train through London, through central England, through Stoke, and up through all that central England. Went to Liverpool, went through Liverpool, the Mersey Tunnel under the Mersey River, and embarked in the Andes, came back through the Panama, and limped. They had trouble with the engine on the Andy's air from New Zealand. We struck a storm and they had trouble. And they limped into Wellington. We got off the boat, got off the quayside at Wellington, and my war's over. A wonderful holiday, 6 years away, wonderful holiday, and I enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm still enjoying it.
So what was it like returning from Germany, the war, food deprivation, coming back here to an
Well,
orchard?
it's a long way harder here. It's a long way harder work.
Right.
Oh boy, it works harder here.
A lot more food though.
Yes, more food. More food. Yeah. Harder work.
Harder work.
Like longer hours. Yeah.
And so Aston, your younger brother, he took over this farm.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When I came back from the war, he left school at 16. I was away at the war, and Dad was sick. Dad died in 44. Aston came home, and he ran the farm with Mum.
Mm-hmm.
Mum helped a lot, and and they carried on. When I came back from the war, he just carried on, and I had nothing to do with the farm at all. Nothing. And I never did have anything to do with the farm after. Before the war, I always helped Dad on the farm as well as the orchard. I helped him on the farm as well.
Yes.
But after the war, no, I had nothing to do with the farm. I just had the orchard alone.
So really the orchard was yours, but on the farm land?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but they transferred it eventually. Eventually they transferred it. My mother didn't want to transfer it.
Yes.
My father died.
Yes.
He would have transferred it because he was the one that encouraged me. He would have transferred it, but my mother didn't want to transfer it. I had a hell of a lot of trouble really, but eventually got a trouble. I wasn't able to sell it.
Right.
It was a proper bugger. I wanted to sell it and I couldn't.
Right.
You know, title.
Yes.
But I got the title and then I sold it.
Right.
And then I was able to get a rehab loan, you see.
Okay.
I had no rehab, you see.
Yes.
4 years after I came back, I had no rehab. Yeah,
When you came back,
yeah, that's
the
right.
family dynamics had changed, and
Oh, yeah.
yes.
I can remember one of my platoon mates who I hadn't seen since I was taken prisoner. I met him in Christchurch on my way back home. I met him in Christchurch. I think at Littleton because he was a waterside worker. And he told me, I didn't know at the time, I'd only been back in New Zealand about a week. He said, oh, things are not the same. New Zealand not the same now. And I was back here quite a while before I realised he was pretty right. Things
Yeah.
had changed.
Yes.
They weren't the same.
Well,
No, they were
they'd have to
different.
have changed,
They were
yes.
different, yeah. They were different.
You came to this farm in what year?
49.
1949.
April 49, yeah.
Okay. And you bought, you started off with 50 acres, was it?
Yeah, I had 30 acres up by the hall already, and this made it 80 acres here.
And
Bought 50 acres here.
were you married at that time?
Oh yes, she'd been married 4 years at that time.
So you got married pretty quickly after you
Oh
arrived
yeah,
there?
I married in November. Came back in August and married in November.
That was
yeah.
pretty quick.
Well, I knew she knew since before the war. So
Oh, okay.
she corresponded all the years, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I was married 4 years from down here, yeah.
So there was a bit of a romance going on before you went to the war.
A wee bit.
So coming back from the war, starting farming life, and you farmed for, what, 50, how many years?
I
not
cut-
quite 40 odd years?
I shifted in here, from here, in 2001.
So how did you enjoy farming life here? You brought your family up here, you farmed
Yeah,
here
yeah.
for nearly
Oh,
50 years?
it was a struggle. Small farms are a struggle.
Yeah.
You're working all the time, and you haven't got much. You haven't got much money, and your farm's too small to buy a lot of machinery, and without a lot of machinery, such a lot of things you can't do economically. It's a struggle, a small farm. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. I always get up from the table hungry.
Right.
I'm never so full of it anymore. I could always eat more and leave. That's part of the prison. I feel cheated. I feel if I hadn't been taken prisoner, I'd have been dead.
Right.
because I'd taken risks.
Okay.
Because I took risks in Crete, and I got away with it. I didn't want to be taken prisoner, yeah.
Yes.
I was cheated, yeah. I would have liked to see more action, yeah, I was cheated. Yeah.
Do you have any bitter feelings about your time in the war?
No, it's just, that was just, as it was, no, I had no bitter feelings at all. I couldn't have done it any better and lived. I lived. If I'd done any different, I'd have died.
Right.
No, I enjoyed it. It was part of growing up, and I enjoyed it. Yes. I should have gone to the city and had tried to get into a position. Yeah. That's hindsight.
What position do you think you would have liked?
Well, that's the problem. I didn't like any. I far sooner preferred up in the hills shooting rabbits every night.
Yes.
Shooting. Oh, it was such a marvellous time. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
There was no commercial future, and there was no poor financial rewards, but I had a free and easy life. They were free and easy in those days. Far free and easier than they are today.
Yes.
Not the litigation.
Yes.
No,
Mm.
it was a far easier lifestyle. The one thing that really crushes you is a roof over your head. If you're out, even out in the yard, if you can see sky, you're free. Free.